Hello everybody, hope you're doing fantastically well. It's Connor here in more different settings. Can you believe it? Well, we are here. We're here with another video. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. I hope you've all had a good day, and I'm back here with another discussion point this evening, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you are on this planet. Make sure you're liking the content as always, everybody. Thanks for the love on the video this morning as well. I thought there was a few interesting topical debates on there on the Patreon at this moment in time. We've got a couple of questions up on what you guys want to hear on Generation Leeds. So if you haven't popped over there and check that out, come on, you've got to do a service to the channel and I'll give you one back. Pause. You can also join the YouTube memberships, everybody. £2 a month. Make sure you do that. Just press the join button and you're there. You can donate to the channel as well, the thanks button, by hitting the thanks button, I should say. But listen, let's get on with today's topical stuff. So I wanted to speak right now about Mr. Daniel Farke. Now, there's been loads of rumours today on a couple of sites that maybe are slightly questionable, but a couple of sites nonetheless, and it brings up an interesting discussion point. Daniel Farke, according to most of these sites, is going to be handed a bumper contract once Leeds United, based on what's going on at this moment in time, and once we get to the Premier League, he's going to be handed a bumper contract. Now, why this is interesting is because I just don't see this as something that the 49ers will have done. I don't see that. I mean, there's an incentive there. If he gets to the Premier League, he's already on a 4-year contract. I don't see why the taper with that. He's on a very modest wage, according to a lot of sources. And right now, I think, we live in the moment when it comes to Daniel Farke. I understand that there's obviously going to be a little bit of contractual talks. I understand that there's going to be all this sort of stuff behind the scenes, probably when it is Daniel Farke. But I think it's more going to be from a fan's perspective. I don't think that 49ers are going to be discussing that with him right now, because we were having this discussion not long ago. Are the 49ers even going to see Daniel Farke as the long-term project? I personally think that right now it'd be absolutely ludicrous to not give him the time in the Premier League if we are to get there. However, it's fascinating when you're looking at the 49ers and how they're going to work this. I personally think there's a lot of people, discussing the likelihood right now of Leeds United going up and potentially replacing Daniel Farke, potentially replacing Joe Rodon, potentially replacing some of the other players that we've got who are doing so well in the Championship right now. And I completely understand that. Why do I understand that? I understand that because it is the next level. And we know that the next level puts on different demands. And really, in my opinion, I've mentioned this several times, but there's only been 2 players who've proven it for Leeds United in this current squad in the Premier League. So there's so much that the 49ers are going to have to consider for next year. We all know that there is going to have to be a swelling of squad additions. There is going to have to be a melting pot. And the exciting thing right now is, as we were mentioning about Joe Rodon earlier on, we can start looking at this right now. And it's not to say we're promoted, of course it's not. It's not to say we're in the promised land yet. But we are at the point now where fans, pundits, as they have been doing, Neil Warnock, Danny Murphy, Simon Jordan, where you can at least talk about Leeds United being on the verge of that Premier League. We've got loads of games left, still 14-15, but unlike maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, when there's certain people questioning whether or not Leeds United are going to make that top 2 because of how far back we were and the form that was happening with the teams in front, there's been some of those teams who have dipped a little bit, notoriously being Ipswich. And Leeds have been able to gather this run of form, 7 wins on the bounce, potentially 8 at the weekend, 9 wins in 11, where you are looking at Daniel Farke, and as a competitor, as a manager, as a coach, whatever you want to call him, he's doing a very, 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 very good job. Now, I think some of the mixture with it, in my opinion, is that it's just solely on Daniel Farke. I don't think it is. I think it is a mixture of an unbelievable Championship squad, which is one of the top 3, top 4 Championship squads that there has ever been, and some really good management from Daniel Farke. I think we've spoken on this channel about maybe missteps that I think he's made. I think the Charlie Cresswell thing was, when he came out and publicly did that, I didn't think that was right. I thought at the time when he spoke on Jed Spence publicly, it wasn't great. That was my personal perspective at the time. However, what he's done since, when you look at it, when you look at the the combination of what he's done and how he's done it has been really impressive. And the reason is because at those moments in time, we were not able to judge Daniel Farke on the long term effects. I wasn't able to say, well, he's spoken about this when it comes to Willy Gnonto in this way, and it's had a benefit. He's kept Willy Gnonto out and it's had a benefit. He's brought a midfielder in for £6 million and he's kept him out of the side. They bought Eli Gruev for more than they bought Glenn Kamara for, but Gruev doesn't get in the side. Was that a little bit of a dud buy? Why is he keeping him in? Why isn't he involving him? Why is his substitutions a little bit irregular? Why is he only given at points strikers 2 minutes? There is a lot of questions at Daniel Farke's door, and you can only tell really now the long-term effects of this. The long-term effects are coming to fruition right now, which is the substitutes are still hungry. The man management when it's come to Willy Gnonto, when it's come to Eli Gruev, when it's come to Junior Firpo, when it's come to keeping these players hungry has been absolutely astronomical. You even look at when Christopher Claesen has come in, and when Christopher Claesen came in, there seems to be a real assurance about him. We're seeing now, which I don't know if we were seeing earlier on, I think we saw it a little bit with arms over the shoulder with Archie Gray, but aside from him, I think we're now seeing Daniel Farke end games and go and speak to Joe Rodon, go and speak to Ethan Ampadu, go and speak to some of the senior pros, and almost have a little bit of Bielsa-isms about them, where Bielsa used to end the games and he wouldn't always storm down the tunnel. He'd go and chat to a player. Pep Guardiola does it very, very frequently, where he goes onto the pitch and almost remonstrates and says to the players, look, this is what I want you to do. And Daniel Farke has started doing that, and I don't know if it's a little bit of notoriety with the players, a little bit of familiarity, I should say. And he's really, really picking up on the tactical things, which I'm not saying he wasn't at the start of the season, but it seems to be, we're able to see it a little bit more on the pitch now. And I'm seeing a lot of variation in his tactical play when it comes to these long balls, playing over a press. I've mentioned that several times. I think the team are a little bit more expansive. I think we're touching the sort of next level when it comes to the player caliber. I think they've developed so much. I think Dan James has been an absolute obvious one when it's come to that. I can't believe how much he's improved as a football player. There has been a hunger from Patrick Bamford when he's been out of the side for so long, when he was the number 9 for such a long period of time. You've seen Joel Pereira out of the side, then he comes back in, then he scores the other night. There is just, Daniel Farke has been able, and what my massive benefit like to Daniel Farke, and the big comment that I want to give him is the fact that he's able to keep these players hungry, and he's been tactically flexible when before, in my opinion, at Norwich and before, a lot of Mönchengladbach fans have said the same thing, he wasn't tactically flexible enough. Now, formation-wise, we're still seeing the 4-2-3-1. I think we are seeing differences in possession. I think we're seeing the 3 at the back at points with Leeds in possession. But I also think the beauty of what Daniel Farke has done is he's been able to be a little bit more, you've seen an elevated level of performance from Leeds, and we've gone on a run at the right time. And his Norwich side did this, especially in the first campaign, they did this. And you're looking at it and thinking that is a little bit of genius when it comes to managerial sort of acumen. You're seeing the top quality level of performer, but there are a lot of young lads there. A hell of a lot of young lads, and as I've mentioned previously on streams, like 90% of management, according to several managers, is man management. And if Daniel Farke has been able to deal with all of these issues, it is a perfect, almost trial run. And this is so interesting when we're talking about contracts, because this is almost a bit of a trial and error for him. I'm going to try this, I'm going to trial this, I'm going to trial this, but you're going to see the 49ers, and I've said this multiple times, I'm still convinced that they are going to be sort of savagely judging him on this season with the squad that we've got. They know that this is probably the best team they're going to get with Leeds in the Championship. They're not going to get a better team next season or the season after that, especially when parachute payments are drying up. This is the best Leeds side that there will be. So this Leeds side has to get up. And I think that's what they will be thinking objectively. They might not come out and have this PR sort of thing and outwardly say it, because you're not going to outwardly say it. Obviously, that's logic, but I think overall what we're going to see is a real sort of, and this is why I don't think you've seen Farke get overjoyed. The other night he was still quite timid when it came to the post-match press conference, said the lads played well, and he's never really elevated those levels. So I think he's impressed me massively. And the reason I mention all of these little things is because it all comes back to the contract at the end. And I still maintain what I said at the start of this video, it'd be ridiculous in my opinion to offer him a contract right now. It would make no sense if they're just to offer him higher terms. I don't really know why they do that. He's on a 4-year deal, a very good 4-year deal. But when they get to the Premier League as well, I think with Daniel Farke, does he deserve a contract? Of course he does. Of course, just for getting Leeds to the Premier League, but he's also on a decent contract. And I would hold fire and see, if we are to get to the Premier League, how Daniel Farke does in his first 10 games and then measure it on that. I don't think you can go to the Premier League and immediately offer him a new contract, and I don't think the 49ers will do that. I don't think that's how they'll operate, because they'll want to be in the Premier League. Their whole commercial landscape is going to be, if Leeds United get into the Premier League, they're able to do what they want to do, spend what they want to spend when Leeds are in the Premier League. They want Leeds to maintain in the Premier League. So they put him on a 4-year contract. But if we are to get back to the promised land, and it's looking more and more likely that we will, if we are to get to the promised land, there is still going to be a leash there, and I think Daniel Farke is still going to have to impress within those first 10 games, really. It's only 38 games in a Premier League season. First 10 games, it's pretty much, a third of it gone, isn't it? Just under a third of it gone. So they're going to be judging him, and especially with all the artillery they'll have brought in. But I think they're going to trust him. I do think they're going to trust him. And listen, we might get into the Premier League if we do get there. I keep having to say this. We might get in the Premier League and we might absolutely fly under Daniel Farke. And that'll be great to see. He always said at Norwich, he wasn't backed enough. Mönchengladbach wasn't great. They didn't really progress. But at Norwich, the whole thing was he wasn't backed enough. And the fans as well, the Norwich fans have sort of added to that as well and agreed with that. So if he is backed, that's where it's going to be fascinating. We look at not recent history. Jesse Marsch was backed, didn't go well for him straight away. But Daniel Farke was a different kettle of fish. He's worked in the Championship now. He's also worked in the Premier League. And were Norwich worse off when they got a Dean Smith in? Probably not, in the Premier League. And a lot of Norwich fans believe that they shouldn't have sacked him, and they didn't really have the financial power that Leeds United will have in that division. So it's going to be fascinating to see how it goes. But would you offer Daniel Farke a contract immediately if Leeds will if we were to immediately get to the Premier League? I personally wouldn't. I'd hold off a little bit and see what happens in the first 10-ish games. But let me know, everybody. But this is all coming out today. There's been a lot of reports saying that, countering the fact that he's been offered, he's going to be offered a new contract. There's a lot of reports suggesting that this won't happen and they're just going to wait and see what happens. And I think that's the smartest move. Guys, let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in a bit.